Hey there, welcome to Casual Fridays on Soccer Cards United, our new casual interview show, which will intermittently be appearing in your feeds on some Fridays, where we take some time to just have a casual chat with someone from around the hobby that we're interested in talking to. This week, to start us off on Casual Fridays, it's Lance Fensterman, CEO of Fanatics Events. Lance and I got to talk during the week. He's just about to host the second year of Fanatics Fest NYC. He's previously hosted New York Comic Con and Star Wars Celebration and all sorts of fan and pop culture events. So we got into it. Technical questions about how you should best organize a card show, what his advice is for event organizers. We talked about soccer coming in a more expanded way to Fanatics Fest. We talked about plans for Fanatics Fest Europe. It was a very exciting chat. It's the first of our semi-regular series called Casual Fridays, which we are now starting. And as always on Casual Fridays, enjoy my chat with Lance and stay casual. Okay, so I'm sitting here with Lance Fensterman, the CEO of Fanatics Events and chief organizer of the upcoming Fanatics Fest NYC. Lance, how's it going? Welcome to Soccer Cards United. Thanks for chatting to me.
I'm great, man. It's really good to be here, and I can look down the hall here and see my timer. I'm 15 days. We're 15
15
days
days out. Okay,
away.
that's
So
good.
yeah. So considering the proximity, I'm doing great. Thank you.
Okay, great. I can say just to start that I was at the last Fanatics Fest as an attendee, and we're flying back over from Dublin to New York again this year, and we'll be set up with a booth. So,
Oh, that's
I
awesome.
mean, so we have some planning to do as well, but not quite as much planning as you have to do in the next 15 days. How is the preparation going? How is everything looking? Are we all set to go?
I wouldn't say we're all set to go. So like
Mm-hmm.
give me 15 more days before you show
Okay.
up.
Okay.
But we'll be ready by then.
Great.
It's amazing. We have I think 40% more space.
Mm-hmm.
We've got more leagues, more athletes, more interactive booths, more panels, more podcasts, more
Yeah.
headaches, more fun.
Right. Yeah.
It's
Sorry.
going to
Yeah.
be
I think
yeah,
headaches may have slipped in there, but yeah.
yeah.
Speaking of leagues and athletes, one thing for me as a kind of soccer card collector and kind of big soccer guy walking around was last year there were some activations. The MLS were there, Juventus were
Mhm.
there, but in terms of the roster of athletes. And in terms of the leagues were or weren't represented, for me it was like I wouldn't even say I was disappointed. I was just jealous. You know, it was one of those things like I want more of my kind of my guys in there. And I see looking through the website, Roberto Carlos is going to be there, Alfonso Davies is going to be there this year, Carly Lloyd is going to be there. Like, I wonder the addition of those soccer athletes to the lineup, was that driven by feedback? Were we the only people that were wanting more soccer, or did you get that kind of feedback?
We all of our post show research was done exclusively in Ireland, and
Okay,
so
yeah.
any
That makes sense.
wishes, yes, it's all Irish based.
Yeah,
No,
good.
we did a show in August when we launched it in large part because frankly it's the only dates we could get. It's quite
Hmm.
difficult to get tenancy in that venue, and it's the only venue in New York City that can accommodate an event of our ambition. So
Yeah,
but it's a tough time frame for American football and a tough time frame for European football.
sure.
So moving forward into June, where we are this year, it was done primarily to accommodate current American football players and international football players.
Oh, great.
And I think we've done very, very well with current American football players. The lineup is pretty stacked with some
Yeah.
amazing talent from American football, and we've done well with
Mhm.
European and international leagues, FIFA, Premier League,
Yeah.
Juventus. I think PSG is going to have it. Like we've
PSG,
got
Inter are going to
great
be there
teams
too.
and
Yeah.
leagues. Yep, yep. We've done okay with players, and I think a lot of
Okay.
that is Club World Cup coinciding
Yeah.
with what we're doing. And they're in, I think, what is it, 6 or 8 American cities, which is
Yeah. They're
awesome.
dotted around.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's not really helped us very much in terms of getting current football players. So that's been a little bit of a challenge. But if we can remain in this time frame ish going forward, I think it'll help us build as
Sure.
Fanatics builds more and more relationships with international football players and leagues and teams and
Yeah.
clubs that will allow us to also bring those sorts of athletes and clubs and leagues into the show. So
Yeah.
good start,
Definitely.
work to be done.
That's great. I think that's what everybody wants to hear, because we have, and soccer collecting and the soccer hobby in general, we sometimes have a bit of an inferiority complex, and we're kind of like, is anybody listening to us? Does anybody even know? Does anybody even care? So oftentimes, all we want to be told is, we see you, we hear you, we're working on it. That's so it's good and it's getting better. That's great. In terms
I'm
of those
sorry,
leagues,
I missed that last part. I wasn't listening. What did you say? That's what in America we call dad humor. So just ignore it.
It was pretty good. I have to say, you got me for like a half a second longer than I'm comfortable admitting. But in terms of those leagues and brands, so obviously the Premier League is going to move over to Tops as of this summer. Were they, were the Premier League pretty excited? I know their American footprint is extremely important to them as a brand. Were they kind of excited? And do you have any specifics you could share or as to what the Premier League may be doing at Fanatics Fest this year?
Yeah, they were actually quite excited around the platform and the fact that America is an important market to them, the U.S. is an important market to them. So we've had like pretty early engagement in just conversations. It's also been really fun because they're building out their mornings live footprint, their events in the U.S. And so it's been fun to just as a live experience guy to get to talk with them about what they're doing. I wouldn't be so bold as to say I gave them advice, but I was able to listen and sort of reflect, some thoughts with them, and that's enjoyable because that's one of the premier brands in sport. So to be able to be engaged in those conversations was really fun. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I'm not sure right now what EPL is doing. I know I've seen some booth designs and renderings, but they've been building it for quite a while, and our formal relationship between Fanatics and EPL really just starts, I think, next week, perhaps.
Something like that.
So like we've had great conversations, but they've been building it, and I'll be as excited as you are to see what it all looks like. So
right, great. And then in terms of speaking of kind of formal relationships or informal relationships, FIFA also have a footprint at this year's show. There's a relationship there, and of course, when it comes to trading cards, FIFA are very much on the other side of the aisle. They're sort of Fanatics' great white whale in terms of soccer card licenses. But you managed to get them on board for Fanatics Events. I have to say, those of us that are in the kind of soccer card licensing, watching business, we were very interested as to how that came together. I guess what's up with FIFA?
yeah. What's up with FIFA? And it's always nice to have a Moby Dick reference in a sports podcast.
Yeah, sure. Like, I give you as literary as possible.
I give you serious bonus points for that. So honestly, they have, again, the U.S. market is so important to them, particularly right now, right? Club World Cup is happening this summer, but then obviously next summer is World Cup in the US. And so it just made sense for us to figure out how can we help them promote Club World Cup and World Cup over the next 12, 14 months together and using this platform. And it allows them, a lot of what events do well is they start to kind of cross-pollinate, and part of our premise is, people aren't clamoring to collect cards if they don't collect cards. But if we can bring them into an ecosystem where there's lots of things they love, like athletes doing signings and panels and podcasts, right? And then they discover collecting in the hobby, that's wonderful. And I think the same though applies to, so you kind of know a little bit about international football, but if you can get into the ecosystem, it gives leagues like EPL or FIFA the opportunity to convert you into a fan, and that's what's fun about these. You're not just catering to converted fans of whatever it might be, sport, team, podcast, hobby. You're catering to fans of sport culture, popular culture, and then bringing them in to introduce them to new things. That's what's fun about live events, right?
Oh, that's funny you brought that up, because that was actually one of my questions here on my list is, I'm interested to know your thoughts on kind of the theory of cross-pollination in live events. Because, as a card show organizer myself, as hanging around with a lot of card show organizers, that debate is always going on. In Europe, the debate may be, okay, we have TCGs are really excited to have a card show. Sports guys are really excited to have a card show. What should we do? Should we give them this part of the room, give them this part of the room? Or, and so how much in live events, whether it be kind of past life and non-sport stuff or now in sports stuff, how are you kind of a true believer in the theory of cross-pollination, and that people will stumble across things and it does bring benefits? Or do you mostly think if somebody comes for WWE, they're staying for WWE and then they're going home?
Yeah, I think it varies, of course,
Hmm.
but like what we know about live events is it is digital campaigns, right, are a
Yeah.
great way to reach many people in a very shallow way, and it's
Hmm.
efficient at that. Live events like this that we build, immersive live events, are a great way to reach a smaller audience in an incredibly in-depth way, right? You
Hmm.
literally get to touch your customers, you get to introduce them to things, right? And
Yeah.
so it's a way to truly say, like, if you like, you may like.
Hmm.
And I've got countless examples through my career in building out communities like this, where these forums are places where people discover relationships with other people, other
Yeah.
fans, other brands, other leagues, other teams, like it's where these things happen, and they happen quite effectively and in a very immersive and impactful way. So,
Yeah.
short answer, yes.
Great, great. No, it's true because I mean, like we often kind of have this maybe idealized or kind of like model. Maybe it's a family, maybe it's two adults and three children coming, and one of the children likes football, one of the children likes Pokemon, and and it's
Yep.
like how much and dad likes this and mom likes this, and how much cross pollination going in there. And I think because we're in Europe anyway, we're only kind of starting to have these sports collectibles events regularly. We're still kind of working that out. It's very interesting to hear that in your
Yep.
experience it does kind of scale up, and as you say, they're kind of deep relationships
Yep.
that are being formed.
I'll give you like a sort of an interesting example. So I used to run huge gaming events, video games, and we ran one that was exclusively towards analog games, tabletop board games,
Right.
strategy games, right? So essentially, it was a huge show with just massive tables and chairs and people playing games together. And there would be signs up on the tables that would just say like "New players welcome." And
Hmm.
strategy board role playing games are incredibly in depth and complex. But
Yes.
in this forum of 3 days, so this is all it is, people would wander through and be like, "Oh, I'd love to learn about Settlers of Catalan." What?
Hmm.
And they would sit down and be able to play a game for half an hour or an hour where someone who knows it well would teach them. Like
Yes.
that's the sort of, and that may be an extreme example, but like the hobby and collecting can be quite daunting and complex if you're not
Hmm.
familiar with it. And so these forums are great places for someone to literally take you by the hand and go, let me walk you through it. Like there's lots
Yes.
of ways to collect. Let me tell you about card breaking. Let's go watch a card break and you can understand what that is and how
Hmm.
you can participate. And I think that's what's exciting is we're really getting to live with our fans for a day or two or three and
Yeah.
getting to introduce them to all kinds of new things and new ideas. And that's what these events do very well.
Excellent. While we're on the kind of the topic of card shows or collectibles events experiences, panels. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on panels. Obviously, panels were there last year. Live podcasts were there last year, and they're back again. And as you say, they're expanded along with kind of the general expansion of the event. Um, just to kind of again make it about myself, which I love to do. I've sat in a lot of these debates where it's like, do we want to do panels? Do we want to take people off the show floor? We're putting so much time and money and effort into making these incredible activations or getting these vendors in. And then we're saying to people, okay, don't go there. Spend one of your 5 hours at the show and go and watch this panel. And so I'm interested to know when you're designing these panels, live podcasts, whatever it may be, what is the thinking there on panels? What's the philosophy behind that?
Yeah, it was quite novel when we did it last year. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was not something that had been done
It's
at
kind of a
you
Comic
know
Con thing, right?
a lot, right?
Typically, yeah,
Yeah, and athletes weren't necessarily used to doing it,
yeah.
and mashing up athletes with entertainers and musicians and other sort of luminaries from the world of popular culture, also quite novel, quite original,
Mm-hmm.
not done before, and a decent amount of skepticism from some people. Like, really, are
Yes,
people gonna sit through this? Maybe a three
including me, I
thousand
guess.
seat theater, yeah.
I've just outed myself. Yeah.
And it was one of the, I think, most well rated and kind of headline grabbing platforms that we had because we
Mm,
really did do something original. And the idea was that we want to have kind of multi channel opportunities for people to interact. And there are people that really want to hear from, these luminaries, I'll call them that,
yeah.
and to hear a story they haven't heard, to get the story behind the story, not just the game winning hit or the game winning drive, but like what really, powers these people? What are their passions? What do they do off the field? What are their side hustles, right? What are they
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
interested in? And I think it gives another layer of complexity and depth to the relationship that people feel. And again, what we've learned is live events are great for creating a more porous connection
Hmm.
between fans and who they are fans of. And so
Yes,
the
yes,
ability to
yes.
sit and hear that story, to be in the room last year when KD and Ant Edwards came back from the Olympics with gold medals. I mean,
Yeah,
they were back a week barely, and
yeah.
like that was an opportunity, one of the first, to be able to like celebrate that victory and be there in that moment and say like,
Hmm.
I saw KD and I saw Ant in the room with their gold medals and 3,000 people chanting USA because they were so
Yeah,
excited. That's a
yeah.
moment that people that were there aren't going to forget. And I think we're really in the business of saying, how do we create these memorable, once in a
Hmm.
lifetime, can't be replicated moments? And sometimes that is like, finding that card you've been seeking. Sometimes it is, shooting a slap shot into a
Yeah, yeah.
washing machine in the NHL booth, or it's sitting there and seeing your hero tell a story that you'd never heard before and be in the room for
Yes.
that moment. Those are really cool experiences for people, and that's what we're in the business of doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes perfect sense, and I think when you describe it like that, I mean, I'm almost like I'm like let's go,
Let's go.
but let's go. I'm booking all the panels right now. I'm not even going to
Yeah.
my booth, but yeah, I mean, I get it around kind of moments, and it's quite easy to say here is what I think of panels, or here's what I think of these. But when you put yourself in the mind of a specific person who doesn't want to just go to a panel or see a live podcast, they want to go to this specific thing and hear from their specific, guy or girl that they're like super interested in. So
Totally.
that makes sense. Yeah.
And
Um.
again, if we've got an interesting mashup on that stage of like, I love blank athlete and I've never heard of that other person. It could
Yes.
be another athlete, it could be another sport, it could be an entertainer, it could be right. And you're now back to cross pollination. You're introduced to something else because it's associated with something you know and love, which is great.
Yep. And then I suppose if I was just link that again to our earlier conversation about soccer, that's kind of where something like, you put someone like Alfonso Davies or something on a stage with people who maybe don't know him. And then it's like, for us as an emerging market within the hobby, within collectibles, that's something I guess we should be excited about. In terms of international expansion, now I know there have been some kind of back and forths over the last year in terms of national expansion for Fanatics events, but let's talk international. I'm not going to press you for a scoop, but in the medium term, is there any talk internally about a Fanatics Fest Europe, and where that might be, or what the challenges might be about around that, or what might be exciting around that?
Um, there's a vision of
Okay.
where we could go. There's a
Yeah.
lot of visions, right? We've had a lot, to your point, we've had a lot of different ideas. And like, I get it. We're a part of Fanatics, which is, a massive organization, but like my little team is a startup, right?
Hmm.
And we are, 25 people, just trying to build something special. And so that means we have a lot of ideas and visions and hypotheses. And, you keep kind of pivoting based on what works, what doesn't, what your customers want, what internally the different arms of Fanatics want, because
Hmm.
we're a service provider. We're here to serve all the different parts of Fanatics as well as our fans and teams and leagues and athletes. So my point is we're kind of always listening, and whatever my vision might be, is always going to be mashed up with all of those other constituents and stakeholders and what they
Yeah.
value and their priorities are. And that's kind of why you've seen things change. And I'm actually proud of the shifts we've made because it says we're listening, right?
Yeah.
Like what I think is less important than what all of those stakeholders think. Okay. That all said, I think when we get through this event, the first one was like, can we do it? Can we
Hmm.
pull this off?
Yeah.
Right?
Does it
This has
even
never
does
been
it
done.
even work? Yeah.
Does anybody care? And
Yeah.
like, I think we were all pleasantly surprised that it worked. And then really pleasantly surprised by how well it worked and how much it resonated. So then it was like, we got to clear the decks, focus on this. Now it's a question of, can we get it right or
Yeah.
more right? Because we needed to fix some things and we wanted to improve some things. Once we get through that on Monday, the 23rd, we'll be able to
Yes.
start saying, okay, what now? And
Yeah.
I think we'll always view New York City as like the flagship, so to speak. And
Hmm.
then it's a question of, great, what are the what are the other markets of priority, and what might that look like? Because what we don't want to do is, make a promise with a brand that we can't keep. So we need to make sure it's the right market with the right sort of concept. But I think that we would love to see more cities, particularly outside the U.S., as you see the
Okay.
priorities to Fanatics as well. It's just a question of when's the right time and what's the right format.
Yeah, that makes sense. To me, I don't envy you having to come in on the Monday morning, or not quite the Monday morning, and say, okay, that was brilliant, guys, but what have you done for me lately? Yeah. We're gonna wrap up here soon. I don't want to keep you too long. I just wanted to say, for as I say, we're in Europe. We have we do the Dublin card show. There's the London card show, although they're flying. They don't necessarily need any help. Scotland, Paris, I could go on. Apologies to all the people who are going to email me and say, why didn't you tell Lance about my show? But yeah, so like, you've been running these fan events, these live events for incredible span of different events, and an incredible amount of people have come through the doors. What would you say would be a piece of generalized advice you could give to people who are organizing card shows, or maybe organizing collectibles events in general, especially if they are at that kind of startup stage, and they, do you have any kind of nuggets you could share with the people?
Totally. It's not that complicated. Stay focused on the fans. Period. Right. And I think it can be subtle because you want brands and you want athletes perhaps, and you need dealers, and they're all important. But at the end of the day, if there's no one there, if there's no fans there, collectors there, whatever
Yes.
nomenclature you want to use, there's no reason for being. And so I think, like, to me, my entire career has been about staying focused on what those fans want and doing the best I can to deliver it to them in a safe, fun, welcoming environment with minimal friction, right? And if you do that, like, the dealers will come, the teams will come, the athletes will come, right? And
Yeah.
we've done this multiple times where, once you reach a certain kind of critical mass of people, you can't be ignored anymore,
Yes.
And so it's just, don't forget who your customer is and your purpose for being. And that will then, I think, lead you to the right decisions. And
Yeah.
it's subtle sometimes because fans want to see athletes. Okay. But athletes aren't first. The fans are first. Right. And those athletes might be an important, way to bring fans, but you have to remember, again, who's first in that ecosystem. And, like, that's been the guiding principle of my career anyways.
That's I think really, really interesting and good to know. I mean, because sometimes you do get into that point of, like, let's say you have a sponsor or a brand coming on board, and they're like a big get, and it's like, we're all very excited to have this person, and then they want something, they want to do something, and you're kind of like, I don't know, you're always compromising, or the dealers want this, but I'll give you a silly example for us would be, if you have dealers facing back to back in kind of a row of tables, and you're like, I guess every time I move the dealers' backs closer together, I give the fans more space. But if I, or vice versa, whatever it may be. So it's kind of like between sponsors, brands, athletes, dealers, fans. Sometimes it feels like picking a favorite child. But it sounds like you're saying it's okay to have a favorite child. They're called the fans.
I just, like, in the simplest way, if the dealers are too close back to back and the aisles are packed with rabid fans and they are buying and selling and trading, the dealers won't care.
They'll get
right?
over it. Yeah.
Or they'll say, and I mean this in a very affectionate way, oh, there's this terrible show, terrible show. I didn't have any, I had no room behind me. It was terrible. The setup was awful. Oh, do you think he'll come back? Yeah. Can I give you my deposit now? Right. Like, you know what I mean? And I don't mean that to be dismissive of their desires. Everyone's important.
Yeah. You got to balance everybody. Yeah.
But you got to start somewhere, and you gotta prioritize somewhere. And in my experience, it's been fans.
No, that's really, really interesting. I appreciate you getting into the nitty gritty, into the weeds with me. Lance Fensterman, CEO of Fanatics Events, thank you so much for joining us on Soccer Cards United, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks for FanFest NYC.
My pleasure. If you need anything, let me know. I'm happy to help. And despite what may happen as you enter the United States, we are happy to have you.
Thank you very much.
We welcome you with very open arms, and I can't wait to see you.
Thanks to you, Lance.